But he continued to fight on. He was driven to the northern and the southern states in Mexico, and again, the war was being raged in Mexico in those states that he controlled, and there was frequent attacks on the Pacific ports, and so the Saginaw be zipping up to Victoria and then zipping back down to Puerto Vallarta, protecting citizens and not defending the gold shipments, and it was driving the commander of the Pacific Squadron crazy. Now, this gentleman, of course, was Napoleon's foil, but as I explained, Napoleon decided, well, this isn't going to work, so I think I'll sort of abandon my effort here to influence Mexico. But he left him on the throne, and of course the conservatives finally decided they didn't want a monarchy either, so he was shot in 1866 by a firing squad. Collateral damage, I think, for the strategy. But this is another vessel of the Pacific Squadron, and this is representative of the efforts of the Confederate Navy to capture a packet so that the packet could be armed. The steam packets went from San Francisco to Panama, capture a packet, arm it, and then challenge the gold shipments. There was a gentleman, Acting Master Thomas Hogg of the Confederate States Navy, and a cadre of 6 of his officers planned to do just that in a bar in Havana, and the sangria apparently was flowing because the U.S. consul in Havana got word of it, got word to the captain of the Lancaster, and when these 6 guys went aboard the Salvador, the packet that was leaving Panama for San Francisco, with their arms and their commissions, they took them with them. And so the Lancaster stopped them ostensibly for a safety check, went aboard, found Confederate flags, Confederate Navy commissions, arrested the cadre of Confederate officers, and they became prisoners of war. So that was foiled. The next effort was in San Francisco Bay, actually. This was the USS Cyane is our next vessel, and it was sail only, one of the older ships, but it was patrolling San Francisco Bay, and learned that a schooner, the Chapman, had been purchased by members of a secret society, the Knights of the Golden Circle in San Francisco, and intended to leave the bay, stand off outside the bay, and stop the first ship they could to get a larger ship to be able to challenge the gold shipments. So this gentleman was the ringleader. Now, would you suspect this man of plotting? I would. Mr. Harpending was apprehended and spent the rest of the war in prison as a civilian. But the Cyane foiled that attempt. But those attempts were going on all the time with the secret societies. And now we're going to return to our ship that we left headed north for the Sea of Okhotsk. Didn't take any prizes there from April 13th to May 27th. But then June 22nd, they went to the Bering Sea and they struck gold, as it were, in the form of prizes. Now you're saying to yourself, didn't the war end? 1865. And you're probably saying to yourself, well, wait a minute. Didn't Lee surrender on April 9th? And wasn't Jeff Davis apprehended on May 10th? Well, yes. The war by this time, it was over. No email in the Bering Sea. So Waddell and his crew was simply doing their duty, and he was taking ship after ship. Now, this is the Shenandoah. This is a whale ship burning. another one having been captured, this one about to be captured. Now you notice that if you can see this, there are 3 whaleboats on this side of the vessel, the port side of the vessel. And that was because they had to suspend from the davits their boats all on one side, because the other side was the side they brought the whale carcass in, and to take the blubber off and boil it down. It's called trying in their big ovens aboard to get the oil out. So at any rate, remember this was a huge industry at the time, and he managed to take 22 vessels between June 22nd to June 28th. Now he took the slowest ones, bonded them, put the prisoners aboard so they were safe, burned the rest of them, and said, "It's getting hot in the Bering Sea, I'm headed south." And his journal, Waddell's journal, showed that he wanted to attack San Francisco, and the next ship that we'll see, remarkably enough, was a Monitor, a ironclad. The Monitors had very low freeboard. They weren't good vessels out in the open ocean. They had a revolving turret, as you can see here. The deck was very close to the water. This ship had come around the Horn in the hold of a sailing vessel, disassembled. And when they got it to San Francisco, they put it back together again. And Waddell knew that its commander was a man named McDougall, and they'd been a classmate of Waddell's at the U.S. Naval Academy when they were both in the Union Navy. And Waddell said to himself, "Oh, McDougall was not the, he was a few bricks short of a load. I'm sure that I can sail in, purporting to be another merchant sailor, to collapse the stack, sail in, board this vessel, put wedges in the turret so that it can't turn, drive the crew below, take the vessel, and then hold San Francisco hostage and its mint." And that was his plan, except when he got to a latitude just off Southern California and northern Mexico, he encountered the British bark Barracuda, which had recent papers on board. And the papers said what we already know, that the war was over, Kirby Smith had surrendered the last army, it was all over, and Waddell said to himself and his crew, "Boys, we're in trouble, because we no longer have a government to defend us against charges of piracy, etc., etc. The war ended a couple of months ago. We're going to strike our guns below, and I see no alternative but to try and avoid Union cruisers on our way back to Great Britain, give the ship back to the British in Liverpool." And there was considerable grumbling on this, because some of the officers wanted to go to Cape Town, which was also British at the time, and turn it in there. But no, he sailed 14,000 miles without being stopped by a Union cruiser, a Union warship. And he ended up anchored in the Mersey right next to this vessel, Her Majesty's ship Donegal. And of course, the captain of the Donegal and all the British officials got a huge headache on this one, because here they were trying to avoid the claims that were being prepared against the British government by the Union for payment in compensation for all those merchant ships they lost and all the damages. And in November, it took them that long, this ship, the crowning example, still afloat, of Confederate depredations in ships that came out of Great Britain, sails into Liverpool. So Captain Painter of the Donegal said, "Well, we got to do damage control here." So he talked to Captain Waddell of the Shenandoah, and he said, "I'm honor bound and duty bound to ask each of your crew their place of origin and their citizenship, so that I can swear to my superiors that there was no violation of the Foreign Enlistment Act. Now, all your officers are Southern, almost all of them were. There were a couple of Irish folk, but and they're free to go. But I'll have to talk to your crew. So Waddell set up a table amidships. Captain Painter sat behind it. Waddell explained to his crew, "I want each of you to come up in turn and answer the Captain Painter's questions." So the first, he called the first name, Seaman O'Shaughnessy. So Seaman O'Shaughnessy comes up at attention. The captain says, "And where are you from, Seaman?" "Sure, Your Honor, and I'm from the great state of Virginia." And Painter said, "Next." Went through the whole crew. They were all from Tennessee, Georgia, South Carolina, Virginia, and sure enough, they were paid off and allowed to go, and he reported no violations of the Foreign Enlistment Act. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how the Confederates on the Northwest coast ended. And I've enjoyed sharing that with you.